I would like to say, after greeting my dear wife, Janja, and after greeting my brother, André Corrêa do Lago, and after greeting Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of the Frame Convention of the UN, and greeting all the UN representatives here in this meeting, our governors, our senators, the cabinet ministers of my government, I would like to say to all of you that it's very difficult to talk before we can pay a homage to the state of Pará and the people of the state of Pará, those that came here from other countries to participate in this conference. Please pay a lot of attention, because you're going to participate in an event in the state that has a wonderful people. You're going to see men and women that are very joyful, highly educated and polite, that will take care of you in this city as you were never taken care of before. I would like to thank to my team from the Chief of Staff, represented also by Governor Elder Barbalho, for making this achievement to hold the COP meeting, the heart of the rainforest in the state of Pará and in the city of Belém. Please try to benefit from this city, of its joy, of the beauty, and also take benefit from the joyful charm, warmth of men and women that will receive you here, that will host you here. And above all, take benefit of the cuisine of Pará. Here, you're going to eat the food that you never ate anywhere else in the world. Maybe the best fish. And do not forget to eat manisoba. The interpreter could interpret it correctly because it's manisoba, as you pronounce it. And there's a dispute between Bahia and the state of Pará, which manisoba is the best one. And I also would like to say to all of you that to organize COP here, it was so difficult to end with the pollution in the planet. It was much easier to have the COP in a finished city, a city that would have no problem. But we decided to accept the challenge to organize the COP in the state of the Amazon region, to prove that when you have political will, or when you have the will, and you have commitment with the truth, then we can prove that there's nothing possible for man or for woman. What is impossible is not to have the courage, the bold, to face the problem. So congratulations to all the delegates here, men and women, government representatives, and to the people of Pará. Congratulations for all of us. This is a lesson of civility. This is a lesson of human greatness, and that the men that go to war, if they were present here at this COP, they would perceive that it's much more cheaper to put $1.3 trillion for us to end with the climate crisis than to put $2 trillion and $700 billion to buy weapons and go to war. For more than 30 years, at the Earth Summit meeting in '92, the leaders of the world gathered in the city of Rio de Janeiro to discuss development and environmental protection. In that moment, multilateralism was experiencing its apex. The world was going to the so-called conference decades, where emerged many great compasses that guided humanity during these 3 decades. Between them came up the concept of sustainable development and the principle of common but shared responsibilities, common but differentiated responsibilities. That is a legacy of the Rio 92. Today, the Climate Convention is back to its home country. It makes the way back to reclaim the enthusiasm that have driven its birth. In the next 2 weeks, Belém will become the capital of the world. Negotiators, governors, mayors, members of the parliament, scientists, civil society organizations will be part of this great and collective endeavor in favor of the planet. To bring COP to the heart of the Amazon was a very difficult task, but a necessary one. The Amazon is not an abstract entity. Those that only see forests from above have no knowledge of what goes beneath the trees and its shadow. The biome that is most diverse in the earth is the home of almost 50 million people, including 400 indigenous people that are dispersed in 9 countries, developing countries that still face immense economic and social challenges. Challenges that Brazil fights to overcome with the same determination that it managed to bypass the logistics adversities that are inherent to organize a conference such as this size. When you leave the city of Belém, the people of the city will continue with the investments in infrastructures that were made here to receive you all. And the world could then say that it now knows the reality of the Amazon tropical forest. In the days that came before this conference, heads of state and of government, ministers of state, representatives of international organizations, and of civil society gathered during the Belém Summit meeting for climate. We launched a tropical Forest Forever Fund. It's an innovative facility that in just one day was invested $5.5 billion in investments. We adopted collective commitments. First, integrated handling of fire. Second, the right to land ownership of the indigenous people and traditional peoples, to quadruple the production of sustainable fuel, the creation of a coalition on carbon markets, and the alignment of climate action to fight hunger and absolute poverty. And more, at the fight against environmental racism. The Belém Summit was the arrival point of a long road that Brazil invited the international community to follow this long and winding road during the presidencies of the G20 and the BRICS. The synthesis of the elements that we gathered during this trajectory is contained in the so-called call to action that we launched during the summit meeting, and that was a contribution to the debates for this COP and beyond the COP. Climate change is not a threat of the future. It is already a tragedy of the present time. The Melissa hurricane that hit hard the Caribbean region and the tornado that reached the state of Paraná in the south of Brazil have left fatal victims and a trail of destruction. Droughts, fires in Africa and Europe, the floods in South America and in Southeast Asia, the increase of the global temperature is spreading pain and devastation, especially amongst the most vulnerable populations. COP30 will be the COP of truth. In the era of fake news and misinformation, the obscurantists reject not only the evidence by science, but also the multilateralism progress. They control algorithms, sow hatred, and spread fear. They attack institutions, they attack science and universities. Now it's the moment to impose a new defeat to the denialists. Without the Paris Agreement, the world would suffer with a catastrophic warming up of almost 5 degrees till the end of this century. So we're moving to the right direction, but at the wrong speed. At this pace, we would advance to a threshold that is higher than the 1.5 global temperature if we keep this pace. And this, to break away from this barrier, is a risk that we cannot take. Dear friends, our call to action is split in 3 parts. And on the first part, I make an appeal to those countries should abide to their commitments. And this means to formulate and implement the NDCs, the national determined contributions that will be ambitious. Then second, to assure financing, technology transfer, and capacity building for the developing countries, and to give the due attention to adaptations to the effects of the climate change. On the second part, I call the world leaders to accelerate their climate action. We have presented the roadmap for humanity so that in a planned and fair way we can overcome the reliance on fossil fuel, and we can stop at that and reverse the deforestation, mobilize resources for this end. Advance demands a more robust global governance to assure that words can be translated in deeds. The proposal of creation of a climate council linked to the General Assembly of the UN is a way to face this challenge and give it the political stature that it deserves. In the third part, I call the international community to place people in the core of the climate agenda. Global warming could push millions of people to hunger and poverty, and that we can have setbacks of decades of advancement. The unproportional impact of climate change on women, Afro descent, migrants, and marginalized groups that should be taken into account in the adaptation policies. It is fundamental to recognize the indigenous people territories and traditional communities in the efforts for mitigation. In Brazil, 13% of the territory are demarcated land for peoples indigenous. Maybe it's not much. We should have a fair transition, needs to contribute to reduce the asymmetries between the global south and global north forged during centuries of emissions. Climate emergency is a case of inequality. It exposes and exacerbates what is unacceptable. It deepens the perverse logic of those that want to live with dignity and those that can live with dignity and those that should die. To change this choice, it is to give a chance to the future that cannot be dictated by tragedy. The lack of hope could extinguish the hopes of the youth. We owe to our sons and daughters and grandsons the opportunity to live in an earth that is possible to keep a dream. The Yanomami shaman Davi Kopenawa said that the thought of the city is obscured and smoked, obstructed by the noise of the cars and of the machineries. So I hope that serenity of the forest will inspire all of us to clarify our necessary thought to see what needs to be done. A good COP30 for all. Thank you very much.